It's time to talk Gonzaga basketball.
Get ready.
It's the Spokesman-Review Zags Insiders Podcast.
Here we go.
Here's Jim Meehan and Richard Fox.
Good Monday morning. Welcome back to the Zags Basketball Insiders Podcast. Jim Meehan, semi-retired from the Spokesman-Review, still doing some freelance. Richard Fox, TV analyst on Gonzaga telecasts on KHQ and SWX. Well, Foxy, we'll get to the eventful week, but first of all, how'd you spend Turkey Day?
Had a really nice time, but it took Wednesday off and Friday, so full 5 days, and legitimately, put the out of office on. I never do that, and I don't know, there's something liberating about doing that. Well, we had a great time. My wife's sister came in from Seattle with her husband and daughter, who's 3. She's delightful, and we had my mother-in-law over on Thursday, so just 8 of us. My wife did a traditional turkey dinner. It was exceptional, and then we went over to my brother-in-law's house on Friday. Just had some pizza, watched some football, hung out. That was great. And then the rest, started getting Christmas is in full force in effect to our house. Started that process on Saturday, so it was awesome, man. I needed a few days, and I got them, and I enjoyed myself. How about you?
Same. I got back Thursday about noonish from Vegas, just in time for the turkey feast. A little smaller gathering than we usually have, but it was great. And we tried the brined turkey this time. We've done about every manner of cooking possible. Deep fried is still my favorite.
I've heard this. I've never done it, but I've heard that.
Oh man, about 40 minutes in oil. It is tasty, but this was right there with it. So we had a great time. Hope everybody else did out there. Well, Foxy, the Zags had a memorable 3-day stretch down in Vegas. I'm sure all of us have had memorable 3-day stretches in Vegas, but theirs was really memorable, up and down. And
which is a typical Vegas trip, right? There's always that.
It is. You got
the good, the bad, the ugly of those trips.
There, man.
Yep.
We'll get to that here in a second, but first of all, the net rankings came out today. That is the NCAA's primary sorting and seeding tool for the NCAA tournament. It is not the end all, because if it was, Gonzaga was number 8 in the net, and ended up being an 8th seed in the tournament last year, if you remember. But it does carry some significant weight for how March Madness is seeded, especially, and how those bottom teams are selected. It plays a key role. So Gonzaga checks in at number 5, very high in those rankings. Michigan, who throttled the Zags down in Vegas in the title game of the Players Era Festival, they are number 1. Tommy Lloyd's crew is number 6. You've got Alabama, Gonzaga's best win via net rankings, at 14. Kentucky, Gonzaga's opponent on Friday in Nashville, they are 15th. So that's where the Zags stand there. Haven't seen the AP poll yet. I can take a quick glance and probably see. Doesn't look like it's out yet. We'll try to find that as the show goes along. They were 12th last week, went 2-1 in Vegas. Guessing they probably moved up a spot or 2. And we'll see. The latest bracketology on ESPN had Gonzaga flying up to a number 2 seed. That was, I believe, before they lost to Michigan by 40 points down at the MGM Grand Garden. So we'll see where they are in that realm when that's updated. I believe it comes out today or tomorrow. So let's go back through, Foxy, the week that was. We did chat about Alabama last week. The Zags played them on Monday. Our recording of this show got delayed a day because I was traveling in airports during the usual taping time. So Zags handled Alabama. excuse me, refresh your memory. Braden Huff, Tyon, Grant Foster, Graham Ike combined for 60 points. Steele Venters drilled forward threes, 20 paint points, or 52 paint points, 20 offensive rebounds. Kind of the formula the Zags have used quite a bit of the season to win that. Then it was on to Maryland, and the Zags looked like the Zags again. Ike and Farrell Payne were kind of a trade-off in the paint.
Mm-hmm.
Their stats basically canceled each other. The two canceled each other out, the two big men. But Braden Huff kind of had a field day against Maryland's second big, if you want to call it that. Zags got after it on the glass. The defense played very well. Gave up 14 offensive rebounds, but when you're facing a pretty athletic team in Maryland that misses most of their first shots,
Yeah,
you're going to give up some offensive rebounds. What'd you see against the Terrapins?
kind of what Michigan did to GU, just who was Gonzaga on Tuesday night against Maryland, where Gonzaga's size just overwhelmed Maryland. You're right. I mean, Payne and Ike, certainly that was fun to watch, and a good matchup. Very similar body types, and kind of, Payne doesn't step out and shoot the three in the way Graham does, but a lot of similarities. And I mean, I think Huff is the takeaway. There's two primary takeaways. One is Huff clearly is a different player than he was the first couple of years, and then I think there's more consistency to what he's doing. We saw that against, as brutal as Michigan was, he was one of the rare bright spots, if there was any, with respect to just how he competed and how he played, and his kind of just consistency, relentlessness of his approach doesn't wane as in the way he did the first couple of years. I mean, he would, go off for 20 some odd points against a SWAC team. They'd play a good team, on the road or neutral site, and you'd be left scratching your head a little bit, like, why isn't some of this stuff which should be translating against some of these better teams?
Yeah,
I think he's turned that corner now, where pretty much night in and night out, there's just a level of consistency to what he does. I think it's helpful for Braden that he's not the focal point defensively the way that Graham, I think, has become for other teams. So that's a really nice spot to be in. You're a high level scorer, but you're not necessarily getting the best defensive big on you at the same level that Graham is, and he's just taking advantage of it. So 9 of 10 from the field, 20 points, just really efficient. His rebounding numbers not exceptional, but he's a big body in there. And the other thing is obviously the 3-point shooting. I believe that's the best 3-point shooting game they've had on the year, 42%, led by Venters, 4 of 7, and then Inocente, 5 of 7 from the 3-point line. And if they can, make that 14 threes in a game, I mean, they're going to be very difficult to beat. And you saw that. It just, with the combination of inside out at that level, with the depth Gonzaga has, is going to be a lot for anybody. And, Michigan proved that point, I think, to GU a little bit on that Wednesday night game. So, yeah, look, that Maryland team, turns it over a ton. A lot of new faces, new coaching staff with Buzz Williams. I think this is a transitional year for Maryland. If I'm guessing, they've got some nice pieces, a couple younger players, but it really feels like these transfers they have are just kind of holding down the fort. And just the talent discrepancy was pretty obvious, I think, across the roster for the most part, other than maybe Payne. And that young freshman, if he sticks around, I think has a chance to be a dynamic guy for Williams. But in this day and age, you never know where someone like that's going to play. So, yeah, I think the better team obviously won, and it wasn't even close.
Maryland is number 200 in the net rankings. That puts them as a quad 3 win for Gonzaga. If they were 201, you drop to 4, quad 4. I don't see that happening because the Maryland plays in a tough conference. They will be they will gain, even if they're losing on the court, they'll gain spots just because they're playing quad one games, most of the time out in that league. So we'll see how that goes. It was the long-awaited breakout game for Gonzaga behind the three-point line. In terms of makes, they had 14 makes. I think that may be their only game in double digits this year. Might have had one game with a higher percentage, 8 for 14 or something to that effect, but really was an impressive showing from two guys in particular. Emmanuel Inocente, I believe he hit 5 and Steele hit 4. Is that right?
Yeah,
9 of 14, if my faulty memory serves. That's pretty good shooting. That's pretty good shooting against air, let alone a Division I defense in a power conference. Steele had a great first couple days down there. I think he hit three or four threes the game before.
Yeah, he was
Inocente, to me, Inocente, his stroke is very solid, sound. He doesn't shoot a ton either way, inside the arc or outside the arc. But once he got going, he was very anxious to put it up there, and the result was very good. Steele, we've talked about. Steele Venters can shoot the ball. He's done it everywhere he's been at Eastern. His stroke is pretty pure. Emmanuel, if Emmanuel can do that, things change wholeheartedly across the board for the Zags. But that three ball, it's like you've heard coaches say that when the ball's going in, everything looks better. Your defense, your offense, your spacing, everything. Any surprise to see, especially Emmanuel, step up and nail them, and then Steele kind of get on track down there?
I mean, no. I mean, Emmanuel, I suppose a little bit. He didn't come into Gonzaga shooting a great percentage, and I'm trying to think I'm looking at my
I want to say
here.
Low 30s, something.
Last 14 games of last year, that's when he started. His minutes went up quite a bit. Played 20 minutes towards the end of last year, and shot less than 30% from three, but didn't take a ton of them. But there's always been something about his shot that has led, I think, folks to believe that he can make them, and he's doing that. I mean, he's 45% this year. I mean, just 20 attempts on the year, but that's right now for Gonzaga. Anybody with the 4 in front from behind the 3-point line is you got to look at that. I mean, it's pretty hard to find. I mean, you look it up and down. Venters down in Vegas, 8 of 19, obviously 0 of 4 against Michigan, but it felt like he started finding the range a bit. But Huff, 16.7% from 3, 2 of 12. I know you maintain hope.
I do.
With Braden. I have lost hope. I don't understand it. He's in 78 career games. He's taken 109 threes and shoots 30%. That's fine. But a career, he's sub 60% from the free throw line, usually for guys who maybe their 3-point percentage is not where you would expect it. If you look at the free throw percentage and that's up there, that gives you confidence and some faith that eventually they're going to get that 3-point shot. And he shoots 65% inside the arc. So, to me, the trade-off is that he knocks down 1 or 2 when he's hot from 3, and that might have an impact on the game. But if he goes 0 of 3 or 1 of 4, those are 3 field goals attempted that he missed. It's just the math doesn't add up, right? And then Ike's 31% on the year. He's been more consistent from 3 and shoots a much better percentage from the 3-point line or free throw line at 76%. But since he's been at Gonzaga, he shoots 61% from the field.
Yeah.
And in that Michigan game, I don't want to get us, move right into that, but it just feels like sometimes for both those kids, it's a settle shot. And, there's a reason no one's guarding you out there. They've done the math too.
Yeah.
They would rather give that up because of your ability to knock it down, but more importantly, because how effective you are around the basket. Right. So we're going to pack this in and make it difficult from 12 or 15 feet an end. If you beat us from 3, And we've seen Graham do that. I mean, what was the game? He had 4 threes, Creighton, I think, in the
Yeah.
first half. I mean, Creighton had the same game plan as Michigan in a lot of ways, in that we're going to let you live out there. Against Creighton, he knocks him down. Against Vegas, or against Michigan, he doesn't. But, Miller's 31% from three, got better than 40% last year at Arizona State. But before Arizona State, that's about where he was as a three-point shooter. The question that you and I have talked about is, what was real? The first 3 years of his career or last year at Arizona State? Right now, we're not seeing the level of consistency from three from Miller, and that's why you brought him in. They don't need him to be a playmaker. And obviously, Smith's not a great three-point shooter, just shooting 23% from the field. And Mario, much like Innocente, limited field goal attempts, but I have him here at 45% as well. So I do think as we're moving into this year, you're seeing who's probably going to be more consistent from three, and who you might look at their previous record and say, this is probably who you are. And this is a real conundrum for the staff. I mean, if you could have, the first and second picks in the draft on your front line, and if you can't shoot the 3-point shot, you're beatable.
Yeah.
Because there's no balance, right? I mean, it's so heavy-handed on one, onto the inside. There's nothing, it's like if you and I got in a boxing fight and all I did was throw right hand haymakers and I never jabbed at you. I mean, at some point here comes the right hand haymaker. I'm just going to pound on this other side.
I like your odds if we ever went at it, Foxy. I think you'd be a tough matchup for me.
Oh, I think you got the quickness on me. And I still think you probably have a lot of that old man strength left.
It wouldn't go very long, I don't think. I think you win that one pretty quickly.
We're lovers, not fighters.
That's right. No, you're right, though. It's kind of like I go back years ago. I probably have used this example when Rui Hachimura was here, and he came back for his junior year, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of showed promise as the sophomore. You could see it was coming, and his junior year was fabulous. I don't know what he finished, 18 or 19 a game.
I'll look at it.
Really high field goal percentage, and I can remember, the talk out there was if he was going to be a draftable guy, he's got to show he can hit the three. You have to show you can hit the three in the NBA's eyes, whether you're a 3 or 4 or 5, whatever.
Any position, yeah.
Yeah, and I asked Tommy Lloyd, an assistant back then and now at Arizona, I asked him about that, and he said, why would we want to take away the best thing he does, which is his mid-range and his ability within 15 feet? And Rui, to this day, is still deadly from mid-range. And he did shoot some threes. He shot a high percentage, probably showed enough to be a lottery pick and all those things, but it's not his forte, or at least it wasn't at Gonzaga. Now in the NBA, the spacing is a whole lot different, and he's continued to shoot it very well from distance. But I get your point with EK and Huff. If they're shooting threes, if the team is sagging off him, that's why they don't believe you can make it. I still believe Huff has a great shot, a good stroke. But one other thing on Innocente too is he has kind of a flair for he hit the three against UCLA last year at the Intuit Dome. I think that was a key bucket later in the game. In his very first game with the Zags, he hit the game-winning shot at Craziness, which is not, doesn't go on your record, but heck, there probably are a few butterflies when you're shooting that shot, trying to make a good impression. But I think he's got a chance to become a very good shooter, or at least help Gonzaga in a way that maybe people weren't predicting. But that 3-point line is something we're going to have to monitor all year. It's there right now. It's been a sore spot, and until they get it corrected, you're going to see these defenses just Huff and EK tailored and make somebody else beat you.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting point about Rui. I mean, looking at it, his senior or junior year averaged 20 a game, took 1 3 per game and shot 42%.
Yeah, just enough to kind of
So
show I can do this.
yeah,
But
so on the year, Braden's taken 1.5, and Graham is taking 2.
Mm.
Graham's shooting 31%. Braden's shooting 16%. Um, it's about time and score. When do you take them, and what type of three do you take? Um, and it feels at times like these shots from both those guys are, and I certainly felt that way against Michigan.
Mm.
I'm settling for this. This is easier. So, and if it goes in, like to your point, it looks great, And Michigan, if Graham goes 4-4 in the first half against Michigan, they're going to change what they're doing, right? But until there's just not a level of consistency where teams are going to be willing to roll the dice here until something changes for GU, and we're going to see that this week against Kentucky. I'm sure of it. But yeah, look, I think with Emmanuel, what I like about him offensively is I think he plays within himself. You'd almost like him to be more assertive offensively, but I don't know if he has that in him. But where he's not a guy who's going to create. It's not going to take a guys off the bounce, but he's very good at finding open space on the wing, receiving the kick out, and he's just very solid with on that catch and shoot in that catch and shoot situation.
Yeah.
And he's a good cutter. He finds cheap baskets. I think the challenge for Emmanuel is his reputation is that he is a high-end defender. And there is a lot to like about what he does on that end, right? He plays really hard. He's big, 6'5", 200 pounds. He looks like an NBA defender physically. The challenge is when the ball's not, if he's not on the ball, if you watch him away from it, he makes mistakes that lead to him being late on contests or losing track of guys. It's not all the time, but when you're playing against the best teams in the country, and that's 3, 4, 5 possessions in a game, and they get 1, 2, 3 good shots out of it and knock it down, that's really hard to absorb.
Yeah.
And so oddly, his offense is, I think, further ahead than I would have envisioned. But defensively, there's still parts of what he's doing that need to tighten up, if that makes sense. On the ball, I think he's good, but it's away from the ball. Against Michigan, if their defensive rotations were as poor as I can remember them being. And that's a big part of that is your wings not being in the right spots.
Yeah. On to Michigan. Oxy,
we already started. We already started, basically.
We got to talk about this. This was a really bad day at the office for Gonzaga, and kind of stunned a lot of people how this turned out, because you had all the hype and all this buildup going into the game. Both teams were just rolling coming into that game, playing great, double-digit wins all over. Michigan had beat San Diego State by 40 and Auburn by 30 or something. It was incredible. And Auburn was ranked at that time. So you just kind of had this feeling it was strength on strength. Gonzaga's inside game. Michigan's got 3 great bigs. You just had this feeling this was going to be must-see TV. And the showdown was never a showdown. It turned into a letdown pretty quickly. Zags were dominated from start to finish. I mean, every facet of the game. Inside the paint, outside, three balls, offense, defense, paint points, bench points, you name it. Michigan was just much better than Gonzaga on Wednesday night. Foxy, the thing that was hard to fathom for me was it just felt like the game was over at the first media timeout, almost over. And you just never see that. In a high-level game, you never see that. But I was kind of stunned watching it. I do give Michigan complete credit. They were on a roll, all-time roll. They won by 111 points in 3 games over 3 pretty salty teams down there. I don't think that's ever been done in any MTE event. They're playing at a level I think it's pretty safe to say nobody's playing at right now. Now, that'll change maybe in their next game, just like it changed from day to day for Gonzaga. But what went through your mind as you're watching the Zags just get dismantled in that game?
I mean, so many things. What else to say?
Cuss words? Any cuss words?
No, I mean, you're watching it. I mean, you're literally in disbelief.
Yeah.
And I texted you. I rewatched it. I got to like the 11-minute mark of the second half. I was like, well, I'm not sure I'm going to learn anything else here or see anything different. But I made myself do that, I think, Friday night. Look, it's a long year. I had a coach once tell me that, if you play 30 games, let's call it, you're going to have 5 games you pitch a perfect game, and you're going to have 5 games where you're terrible. The good teams find a way the games that they're terrible. Gonzaga caught Michigan in one of those 5 games, right? I mean, this is a Michigan team, that struggled against Wake Forest, won in overtime, had to hold off TCU down the stretch, and then got to Vegas and made 38 three-pointers in 3 games and looked like UConn did a few years ago. I mean, and out of nowhere, right? And they have a couple holdovers, but this is largely a new group. And so it's not to say that Michigan is not as good as they appeared, but I do think sometimes you have to be honest and say, look, now they're better than Gonzaga on most nights. I don't think Gonzaga, if you play them 10 times, I'm not sure after this game, even if Gonzaga won a couple, that Michigan wouldn't be favored the whole way through that 10-game series. Yeah. But are they 40 points better than Gonzaga? No. And did Gonzaga play about as poorly as they played in the last 5 years? Yeah. The timing was pretty poor for Gonzaga and pretty advantageous for Michigan. So, look, they have incredible size up front. I mean, they play 7'3", 6'10", 6'9". Makes Gonzaga's front line look quaint at 6'7",
2 of those
6'9",
guys
6'10".
are put together. The 2 of them are very strapped.
Yeah, Johnson and Lendenborg, and then obviously Mara. Gonzaga knows him from UCLA. I mean, he looks like a completely different player. I mean, Dusty May knows what he's doing with bigs in particular. Just has a ton of confidence in him. I mean, that was just a dominant performance inside. Their guards played well, but I just felt like Gonzaga could never get going, and they got deflated when the shots weren't falling. And then it felt like that really impacted them defensively. I was reminded, or I had memories of Caleb Battle last year against UConn in the Garden, where Gonzaga was struggling, kind of in a rut, and Connecticut was going, and he went off for that 5-minute stretch just to keep Gonzaga tethered to UConn. And then the game was competitive. I mean, I don't think UConn ever felt like they didn't have control of the game, but that didn't get away from Gonzaga. Yeah. If Caleb doesn't go off, I think that's a pretty good beatdown. Yeah. Gonzaga, no one was able to do that for GU to get going in the way that Caleb could, right? Yeah. And that was the best of Caleb when he was here, was that game, but also that dynamic that he had, which was he could really score it against anybody, and he was a tough shot maker. Yeah. Look, man, I mean, out-rebounded by 13. Gonzaga had 12 offensive rebounds, but they missed so many shots. You're going to get some of those. On the year now, 32% from 3. I ahead of the podcast, I just wanted to list the good, the bad, and the ugly. And this is what I came up with. The good: Michigan played as well as they'll play probably all season. Yep. Gonzaga played as poorly as they'll probably play all year, maybe for the next 5 years. Michigan goes 48% from 3, and they hit some tough shots in that game, particularly in that first half. The bad: it's about as disorganized defensively as I've seen Gonzaga in a long time. And it's alarming only because or especially because of how we are looking at this team as being special defensively. You expect that end of the floor to be shored up every night. And even though Michigan hit some tough shots, there's just, they got it down to 13 twice in the first half by my recollection. First time, ball gets thrown up the floor on the left side, and Will Tschetter
hits
a three. Now it's a 16. So you're deflated again. You're putting a little pressure on Michigan. And then it happened again where I forget who hit the shot at the top of the key. Might have been McKinney, and Emmanuel's late. And he knocks down, and Emmanuel's there, but the contest is odd. He's on the side of his body. He doesn't leave his feet. And now it's 16 points again. And at that point, that's when I thought the game was over. It just felt like Gonzaga couldn't get over that hump. And Michigan just had, Tschetter hit another tough shot, or rather open three in the corner, with just another breakdown defensively. So, I also think they just settled too often early in the clock. The 3-point attempts from Ike and Huff were just either ill-timed or just bad shots. Like, make Michigan guard you, get into your stuff. And look, the ugly, it's the first time in a long time that I have watched Gonzaga play and felt like their competitive spirit was just destroyed. Mm. And that they just it reminded me of the Baylor game, and that Baylor was clearly physically tougher than Gonzaga. You saw that in the first possession. They got like 3 offensive rebounds. Yeah. But that Baylor team was not mentally tougher than Gonzaga that year. Gonzaga fought through that whole game, and I know that's a national championship, but that was a tough Gonzaga team. Mm-hmm. It was like a middleweight fight in the heavyweight. Like, at some point, just the physical dominance of Baylor was just too much. This is the first time in a long time where I watched it twice, where I thought to myself, how tough is this group? It just, that seemed lacking to me. Maybe that's a harsh assessment. It's one game, but boy, it was rough to watch. And then finally, look, 3-point shooting, that's a real problem. That's not like a small chink in the armor. That's like a gaping hole that teams that are not as good as you, let alone a team as good as Michigan, can take advantage of. Yeah. And I know that, Miller's not now going to shoot 50% the rest of the year, or Smith's not going to now be a 40% 3-point shooter. But they have to figure out a way to keep guys on the floor that you believe can make those shots. Venters, Emmanuel, Mario. And then you have to talk about shot quality from 3. Because I don't even think it's about volume. They just have, even if they took less per game, but they took higher quality threes, that percentage is going to go up. And really, the only 2 non-shooters that, outside of Graham and Ike, who are their front court, Worley and Grant Foster get to play because of everything else they do. Yeah. But if Smith and Miller don't make shots, this 9-man rotation, I think you could see it quickly become 7. Yeah. So that's apologies for, that's long. All of that's long-winded, but I've not seen this before. Certainly Gonzaga's gotten beat, but not to this degree, and B, never in such a surprising way. Yeah. Last time I remember him just getting manhandled, taken apart, was UConn in that NCAA tournament game. I think it was 82-54 or something like that. I mean, that was the national champions on their way to, I think they beat every team by double digits in the NCAA tournament. No less than 12, I think, that year. Yeah, and I don't remember which year it was, because I think they might have played them both years, but they had 2. I mean, they had Klingon coming off the bench. That was the year? The first year they won. Yeah, yep. Hawkins and Jackson. I mean, they were loaded. That point guard. That was just a terrific team. That's the last time I can remember them getting handled like that. They did go to the Garden one year, and Duke, 76-41, just shut down Gonzaga. That wasn't a vintage Gonzaga team that year. There's been other games they've been
them beat pretty soundly, but nothing quite jogged the memory like UConn and the Duke game. Let's move on. We've hit Michigan game pretty hard. I'm kind of curious how they'll approach it if they're going to
Well,
be watching.
I was going to ask you. I mean, you're there. How
Yeah.
deflated was the group? I mean, what was the vibe that you caught, if
Well,
anything?
as you mentioned, the alarming thing was how easy a lot of Michigan baskets were. They inside, outside, three ball, whatever you want to say. They beat them off the bounce. They beat them off. Their rotations weren't good. They got it to bigs, and it was dunk or layup. I mean that. And then I think Mark mentioned it right out of the gate. They got absolutely crushed, and there was no response. They tried different defenses. It didn't work. There was no, I think you hit it on the head. Their competitive spirit was broken there, and they never found it again. I think the lack of a response was probably the biggest thing. And then they gave full credit to Michigan. You have to. When you're playing a team like that, sometimes you just run into a buzzsaw. Reminded me of Santa Clara the one year down in Santa Clara. Or was it up here? I don't remember. But the year they scored like 100 and something against Gonzaga and beat the Zags. Just they could have drop kicked it in. And Michigan was the same
I think
way.
I called that game. Yeah,
You know what I mean? But anyway, I think that's
yeah.
the big things is, breakdowns on defense, absolutely no paint presence other than Braden Huff hitting the shot put shots. Graham Ike just had a terrible night. He was 0 for 9. I think he scored 1 point.
Did you get any word on like his ankle? I mean, because he tweaked something, I think, against Maryland, was it? Or maybe it was Alabama, but
yeah, I think there was where he was walking a little gingerly. And no, didn't hear anything. He played quite a few minutes. He played, I want to say, 27 against Maryland, which is a pretty healthy amount of minutes in a 40-point game. Maybe that was a factor. Maybe it was just the sheer size of, that kid he was going up against might have been bigger. He was bigger, I think, than Graham, which you don't run into that very often. When you do, Mara kind of had this center field thing going where he could come over and swat shots, and that is always in your mind. That's like Edey when you're playing Purdue. It just there's a aircraft carrier waiting for you. But it's just a bad night all the way around, and pretty surprising given their form going in. But let's get ahead to Kentucky here. That Zags and Wildcats meet in Nashville. Kentucky is 15th in the net. A big game tomorrow night that I'm sure GU will all be watching, the fans and coaching staff. Wildcats entertain North Carolina on Tuesday, and their resume is a little suspect right now. They're trying to get that marquee win, that quad one win, that statement win. They played the rival Louisville, and they were down big in that game, came back and made it a very tight game at the end. But they lost. And then they played Michigan State, I want to say, about a week ago, and lost by 17 and never felt like they were in that game for most of it. So they're kind of in the Gonzaga position. They're coming off a very tough loss to a very good team, and they want to see how they respond. The big question with Kentucky surrounds their health. Jaden Quaintnitz, the center transfer from Arizona State that the Zags played last year, is recovering from an ACL. No word on his status, but I think he recently returned to playing 3-on-3, so I guess he's not quite there. Pitt transfer guard Jalen Lowe, 17 a game or close to it last year. He's been sidelined for a few games with a shoulder injury. We'll see if he plays. And then they got another transfer from Alabama, Mo. I might butcher this name, Diabate, I'm going to go with. Solid scorer, rebounder, 11-ish points, 6 rebounds. Ankle injury, probably getting him back. As you size this up, Foxy, what are you looking forward to when the Zags visit Kentucky and Nashville.
I mean, I think you hit it on the head. This is a Kentucky team that's still looking for that first win of the year. This is going to feel like a road game for Gonzaga. There's a lot of familiarity between these two programs and coaching staffs, obviously. Look, Kentucky's very good defensively, top 10, rather number 6 in the country, defensive field goal percentage, 32 from the three-point line, third best rebounding team, at least on a rebounding margin basis in the country. 5 guys are scoring double digits. To your point, though, Lowe hasn't really gotten his footing, and the kid out of Arizona State hasn't played yet. Yeah. I mean, Kentucky plays a fun style. I mean, Hope knows is a very good coach. They shoot about 35% from the 3-point line. Don't turn it over, just about 10, 11 a game. Just haven't found that consistency. They've got Denzel Aberdeen, I believe it's how you say it, transferred from Florida.
Yeah, I believe the Florida. Is he the Florida one?
Yep. Yeah. Played in all of their games last year, started 5 of them, 6'5", 195 pounds, senior, averaging 14 a game. Against Louisville at 26 points, took 20 shots, 4 of 10 from the 3-point line, but then against Michigan State, just 10 points, 1 of 8 from the field, 1 of 5 from 3. Kind of gives you an idea of just the consistency that they're struggling with right now, right? I mean, that's pretty wide. Ortega Owe, Gonzaga will be familiar with him. Preseason SEC Player of the Year, I believe. His numbers are not where they were last year, but I mean, he's 6'4", 220. This is an old team. I mean, they've got guys who've been in college a lot like Gonzaga, a lot like Michigan, always averaging 13 a game. Hasn't really gone off yet. It's only shooting 32% from 3. And they've got a couple guys. I mean, Chandler, sophomore, played 30 games last year for Kentucky, 6'5", kind of skilled guard. And then Diabate, 6'7", listed at 6'7", really an interior player, though. Only 1 of 11 from 3 this year. But he's a good athlete, dynamic athlete. They have Garrison off the bench, who Gonzaga will be familiar with. I mean, about 6'10", good athlete, not uberly skilled, but he's going to compete inside, right? So, but look, Gonzaga is going to have an advantage inside with the strength that Ike and Huff presents and the size, and then you throw in Grant Foster. This will feel a little different than Michigan as far as what you've got to go up against inside, and I would expect Gonzaga to try to get that established pretty early. But look, you're going on the road effectively. You can't shoot the 3-point shot outside of a game or two this year, really 1 game. If you can't make shots on Friday night from the 3-point line, Kentucky's going to be able to play with you. I mean, that's it, right? And that sounds so basic and quite frankly almost dumb to provide that analysis. If they make 3-point shots, it's going to be an easy win. But that's not what I'm trying to say. Is you literally don't know. You have no idea what Gonzaga is going to do from the 3-point line. And there's no reason to have confidence that they're going to go and shoot 38% from the 3-point line, that they're going to make 10 threes. That's such a variable that, I mean, any analysis of any Gonzaga game, any game that Gonzaga is going to play, in my mind, just boils down to that one factor. If they've got an advantage inside and they can make a few shots from 3, they're probably going to win fairly easily. Regardless of the advantage inside, if they cannot buy a 3, anybody they play that's got any kind of talent can make that a game.
Yeah.
Right? So, and I mean, I don't think Gonzaga's going to be overwhelmed defensively. Gonzaga's got equal, if not superior, length on the perimeter. Equal or superior athletes across the board. It's just going to come down to that one factor, in my view.
Yeah, I am anxious to see a couple things in that game. How Graham Ike comes back from, that. I'm pretty sure that's the only game he's ever had without a field goal, going back to Wyoming. And, what is it, 8-9 days in between games. So they will have a lot of time to lick their wounds, get after it in the gym, and really work on themselves and Kentucky leading into this game. That is a long time to stew over a 40-point loss.
Well, I'll be really interested to hear how they approach this week, because I was thinking to myself, you're in Vegas. A lot of guys probably the next morning have their own flight home.
Yeah.
You got a few guys coming back on the team plane.
Or family met them in Vegas, I think, too.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, or stayed there.
Yeah.
But my point is, you're not getting together the next day.
No, it's a couple days later. Yeah.
Right. And do you know when when everybody was coming back?
I think they got together this weekend. I think by this late part of the weekend they were back.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, would I rather have had them all together the next day and just unleashed on them in a film session, or is it better to have a few days off? And do you just flush it? Do you address it, but not necessarily dive deep into it?
Yeah.
Turn the page and move forward. I'll be interested if we can learn at all how they did it or what Mark's approach was. I think having the time away from each other is probably ultimately a good thing after a beat down like that. You hope everyone's anxious to get back and to figure it out. But yeah, I mean, that's a good point you make. I mean, just what is the response going to be? That time off, is that going to be a good thing or bad thing? Because you play that poorly as collectively or individually in Graham's case, 8 or 9 days can either be a blessing or it can drive you crazy, and it can just build on itself, right? Like, all I have to think about is the last thing I did, which was terrible. I don't have the next thing to do. I have to wait. So what does that do to your psyche?
Yeah.
I don't know which one is better. I don't have an answer to that, but I think it's really interesting.
They're going to get second helpings of both. They're going to get their family time, be my guess, where either they had it in Vegas or they did the quick flight homes and had it that way. I know Mario's family was there.
Yeah.
And then when they reconvene, whether it was Saturday or Sunday in Spokane, they're going to have to sort through that film. I mean, I don't think you just, dismiss what happened. I think you got to look at things and say, these are things we cannot do and get where we want to go offensively, defensively. I mean, yeah, you want to flush it, but I think the better idea is learn from it, not just that happened. It was a one-off. I think they got to sort through it and say, this is why this play happened. This is why Yaxel dunked on us here. This is why we couldn't get our offense going, our post game. So I think they're going to get both ends of that. They're going to have some family time, and then I think they're going to.
Well, the family time's over.
Their years are going to be on day to day for listed as day to day after they go through that film. Let's move on to a topic or two, and then we'll call it good here. It was an interesting 3 days, as we mentioned, but it's the same for both teams. And maybe this one won't require the longest of analysis, but on the third day, 3 games in 3 days, I have to believe that played some role in the lopsided outcome. Not that it wouldn't have changed the outcome or anything crazy. I'm not suggesting that. But the third day, nobody plays 3 games in 3 days other than this holiday weekend tournament. And even when the Zags had played in the Bahamas, I think they had a day off in there before they played the third game. When you play bing, 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 and you're playing 3 pretty good teams, I don't care how good a shape you are. I don't care how your motor is. You're probably not you're not up at the F on gas tank. You're not full going into that game to begin with. And when it goes south, maybe it is just that much harder to bow up and get back into a game. Things can kind of spiral in a hurry, I would think, in a third game in 3 days. Again, that may be a reach, but I think if there was normal 2-day prep or 1-day prep, maybe that thing looks a little different. Is that complete reach, or is that reasonable in your eyes, Foxy? You can hurt my feelings. Don't worry about it.
It warms with how kind you're becoming the older you get. That's so sweet,
Yeah,
like maybe their legs were tired. Look, I'm on the complete opposite side of that.
I knew you would.
Last I checked, Michigan played 3 games in 3 days.
I know. I mentioned
Kansas
that first
played
off.
3 games in 3 days. Look, this is a team that goes 9 deep. Graham averages 26 minutes a game.
Yeah.
And then Venters is at 16. So throughout the year, there's no Ryan Nembhard load here. I don't care if they had 2 days off and played Friday. If the same 2 teams showed up, Michigan would have won by 40. Had nothing to do with their body or how they felt. Sure, I presume Graham wasn't feeling 100%. If you play any kind of sport at any kind of level, that happens. If you're out there, then you're going to be, more often than not judged based on how you play, regardless of how you feel. So no, I don't think that played any role at all. You're not wrong. It's atypical, but certainly, the Maui Invitational, lots of these tournaments Gonzaga's been in have been three games in 3 days. You got your ass kicked. They opened up a big can of ass whoop and just gave it to you. Like that. It has nothing to do with how tired you are.
Yeah.
So that's my answer to that.
No, I kind of figured you'd say that. And I'm not even kind of believing it myself wholeheartedly, but I do think the third games, even back-to-backs, just 2 games, but the third games are always just a battle of will.
I would say the unique thing about this
competitive will is what it comes down to.
You didn't know who you're going to play. In other words, you go to Maui and you win your first game. Now I've got 3 teams that I could play. I've got the next game, and then I have either the winner or loser of that other game. So from a staff perspective, I'll start working on the scout for my third game 48 hours ahead of time, right? Because in the scout for that third game is kind of a shell scout. It's not full, but you get a head start, right? You've got the players, you start building on tendencies, blah 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 blah, and then once you know the result of that second game, win or lose, and who you're going to play, then you go a full deep dive. So you have more runway as a staff to get organized. Yeah. I do think that was unique about this tournament. I mean, I don't know why, but everyone leading up to it was going to be Houston or St. John's, and then all of a sudden it's Michigan out of nowhere because of this ridiculous tiebreaker thing that they were doing. So I think that presents a challenge where, Gonzaga staff doesn't know anything about Michigan. They don't play Michigan all that often. They don't watch the Big Ten like that. So I presume that was a difficult ask, but that's a professional staff. I mean, I'm sure that game plan was robust. But that would be the one unique thing about this tournament, but it's got nothing to do with their bodies and how tired they were.
And like you with my point earlier, I don't even grant that, because Michigan won by 40 out of the gate, and with this point differential thing, I think they played before Gonzaga too against when Gonzaga played Maryland. They were already winning another game by 30. You knew they were going to be in the title game because of that point differential. Even though it was capped at 20, they maxed it out. And so I wouldn't think they just put all their scouting eggs into one basket with Michigan, but they had to know if they won, it was going to happen. So, I'm not giving them that benefit either, but hey, either way, the bottom line is they got handled. Can't do anything about it now, but the season goes on, and we're going to wrap it up there. We've got you can always catch us every Monday. We will post the I'll post the link to this on the Spokesman website and then back on the YouTube connection as well. Kentucky, going to be a very interesting week for the Zags. Only game. We'll see how fired up they are after absorbing one of the worst losses that they've had in the Mark Few era. So come back and join us next Monday. Have a great week, everybody.